Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. So, in continuation of our summer farm tour series, today we are once again hanging out with one of my favorite farmers, Mr. Daniel Mays of Frith Farm in Scarborough, Maine, discussing their hedgerows there at Frith and what recommendations he would make based on his experience managing them. He also talks a little bit about his greenhouses, which is super cool, and some really interesting little tidbits in there. Kitty cat, you can't do that, it shakes it. You understand me. Especially a little bit about why he doesn't do mobile tunnels. Daniel references his book in this conversation, and, well, it's fantastic, and you should pick it up. It's called The No-Till Organic Vegetable Farm. I'll link that in the show notes. Also, of course, if you're curious about no-till systems in general and want to support our work, consider picking up a copy of the Living Soil Handbook from no-tillgrowers.com, where the proceeds go to doing things like sending my partner at no-tillgrowers.com, Jackson, up to film this particular video, which is awesome. Anyway, enough for me. Let's get into it with Daniel Mays of Frith Farm.
So I'm Daniel Mays. We're here at Frith Farm in Scarborough, Maine, southern Maine. We grow mixed organic vegetables and some small fruit on 3.5 acres. Our model is no-till. We're a no-till permanent bed, sort of never see the soil farm. So constantly mulching and trying to get as much life and diversity into the beds and into the farm as possible. I love hedgerows. They're so many benefits. They bring such joy to everyone. And yeah, we have our welcome gardens that you sort of walk through, and we have sort of odd corners and nooks and triangles of the farm that are perennial plantings, but we also have really intentionally planted hedgerows between each plot. So our sort of standardized farm layout is a plot system. Each plot is 12 beds that are 5 feet on center and 100 feet long. And the hedgerows just act, fundamentally they act as a organizing principle for the farm. So you can visually tell where you are, which plot you're in. Yeah, there's all the beauty, all the diversity that they bring in right into the fields. You can have your field borders, with a lot of diversity, but bringing it right in between the rows. They slow down wind, they windbreak. There can be, harvest from them. There's flowers and herbs that you can pick from them. But I think of them as like this well of diversity above ground and below ground that can then seep out into the fields. In terms of establishing them, kind of like any other vegetable bed, we start by killing the perennial roots that are there, probably sod, so that we have sort of a clean slate to then plant what we want. And my big learning thing from hedgerows, I sort of thought the more the merrier, and I just threw everything in all together, sort of scattered in there. But I would, if I could do it again, I would decouple the herbaceous perennials from the woody perennials. Herbaceous being the ones that die back to the ground in the winter, because the herbaceous perennials often need to be mowed at the end of the season. And if you have woody perennials mixed in there, you can't mow them. So then you're left cutting them out by hand, which now we do in the fall or winter. So yeah, decoupling those, maybe even have a hedgerow wide enough that you could have a row of woody perennials in the middle, because they tend to get bigger, with some herbaceous perennials on either side of them, so you could mow on either side. And then, yeah, thinking about the species that are native to your area, thinking of kind of a continuous overlapping bloom periods throughout the season in terms of species selection. And then you can get, artistic and whatever, think of colors and how they, go together. When they're blooming, what looks good together. There's whole degrees in landscape design, but I think by Story there's a book on pollinators, and then a section of that on sort of what plants best support native pollinators in different regions of the U.S. So that was a big one. And then a lot of research online, just kind of different, university bulletins and anecdotal like forum things. Yeah, sort of getting a sense of. I have a huge list of sort of all the possibilities, and then it's like trial and error. Which ones do I like? Which ones work well in our setting? So then, yeah, in my book, I included sort of the list of my favorites of those that have done well here. If I could talk to my younger self, starting this farm from scratch, there's not a huge number of things that I would sort of fundamentally change, but yeah, just the layout of beds, get that right. Because once you've invested compost and amendments and the time to form beds, it's a pain to move them. So really thinking through that workflow of we use a little tractor to bring compost to the heads of the bed, so there has to be a lane for the tractor everywhere, on each side of each bed. Making sure that's, wide enough but not too wide. Making sure, think of shading, think of drainage, all these considerations to lay out those beds right the first time. And then in terms of hedgerows, I left 5 feet. Our hedgerows ended up being 5 feet because that's what I had between plots. But I didn't design the farm around hedgerows. I came to those, a few years later. So I would leave 15 feet now. That way, the number of options would be much greater of what I could plant, because now I'm stuck with sort of the smaller shrubs and dwarf fruit trees. But to be able to plant, a 15-foot tall shrub in the middle, and then maybe on the sides plant something else, would create a lot more options and, add more diversity. All the benefits of hedgerows are amplified, if the bigger they are. So that's one big difference I would do. And then also treating hedgerows like beds. They need mulching, they need maintenance. Otherwise they become a lovely habitat of life, but life you might not want. Rodents or weed seed blowing in, and now you have weed seed sort of flopping into the beds next to it. More aggressive like natives, like goldenrod or asters, which then start running into your beds. So yeah, they do still require some maintenance. It's easy to think of like set them and forget them. They're perennial, but there's still maintenance involved. I think cover cropping and also making sure to flush it. So we have a high water table that does that naturally, comes right up to the surface in the spring. But to get those salts and the excess nitrogen that can easily build up in a tunnel, if you have irrigation, just once a year at least, to just give it like a good flush, like getting a 2-3 inch rain just kind of flushes the soil. This tunnel I think is 12 years old, and that's all it's had is cover crop and that flushing of the water through the soil. And it's the movable tunnels, I love the idea, but the cost, they're almost twice the cost. So I'm like, why don't you just buy 2 tunnels and rotate and grow cover crop in one for the same cost? So yeah, that's my take on movable tunnels. But yeah, I love when it's all sort of choreographed, like Elliot Coleman does. This one's pretty, it's just peppers. I guess we have a line of second succession cucumbers coming there. But yeah, the other tunnels are a little more diverse. We got some interplantings and tomatoes. Basically treat the tunnels just like outdoors. They're 96 foot instead of 100 foot, but all the spacing's the same. We do choose, cucumbers. We grow parthenocarpic varieties because we do screen the tunnel. That's the only kind of thing that would be a little different. Otherwise, it's just like a zone and a half south of us, and in the tunnels, that's sort of the main difference. But yeah, this is tomatoes with parsley or scallions on the shoulders, and we do sweet alyssum in row with the tomatoes. I love that combination for some diversity, feeding the little insects. If you get still enough and watch, you'll see them on there. There's a little hoverfly. For pest management, beauty, diversity, you name it. And there's also the nice sort of interplanting of the, braconid wasps love the sweet alyssum, and they're the ones who parasitize tomato hornworms. So we have 5 tunnels. This year we're going to do 2 in winter cover crop. I'm going to try and stick with that at least 2 out of the 5 each winter. I see so many benefits of that. To have that cover, that sort of life and that break from a crop through the winter. Aphids can be a problem in high tunnels, but to have that rye, that injection of life, and then the beautiful thing about rye in a tunnel is you can terminate it earlier, because we can knock it down and tarp it, or flail mow it and tarp it, but then we can also seal up the greenhouse. And on a sunny day, it'll get up to 150 degrees inside the greenhouse, in addition to the black tarp heating up. So it'll just kill the rye much faster. At a time of year when outside, the soil's so cold, the tarping doesn't really do much. So I love the sort of the versatility of the tunnel in that way. I think 4 out of the 5 were through Equip. 1 we just paid for, 96 by 30 Rimmel nor'easter tunnels. Yeah, with the automated roll-up sides, definitely worth it. And then we added these in-wall vents for the winter time when the roll-up sides are covered in snow. Otherwise it's a chore to come and open the doors every single day, because it does need to be vented a little bit in the winter if we have winter greens in there. Baseboards on high tunnels are, a big question. Over the last few years, we've replaced all of our wooden baseboards with these polycarbonate, twin wall, 8mm polycarbonate baseboards, which are not structural. The wooden baseboards are sort of structural, holding those ground posts in place, but I find it's not necessary, because the posts are grounded, driven so far in the ground, I don't notice much frost heaving or anything. So this is a much simpler approach, and probably if you look at the life cycle of the polycarbonate, it's cheaper than wood, because you don't have to replace it. Certainly the labor of replacing it, would pencil out in the long run for polycarbonate, but has the added benefit that, it's half exposed, but it goes that far underground as well. So we are blocking weed rhizomes from traveling in, and also slowing down. I won't say it's rodent proof, but it slows them down a lot. So, if they have to dig 20 inches down to get under there. Rodent and weed protection. It also lets light through. So in the winter when the sun is low, the first bed is less shaded. The hardware is here too, that we have, this tunnel is screened. It's cucumbers to screen out the cucumber beetles that carry bacterial wilt around. So we get full season cucumbers from here. And it's just another, piece of wiggle wire track on top of the polycarb to hold the screen. And there's these, aluminum extrusions to top the polycarbonate, and to the butt ends. There's, they call that the H extrusion to the ends fit into. So, getting all that hardware, and then the hardest part is drilling the eye bolts through the ground posts to hold the ropes for the roll-up sides. Definitely worth doing off the bat, I would say, if I could do this again. Digging the trench is a lot of work too, but doing that by hand is kind of necessary, because the ground posts are right up against it. Our cucumber crop, it's showing a little bit of nutrient deficiency right now. We just side dressed it. We had the shoulders were interplanted with radishes and Hakurei turnips that were so big that I think they were competing a little bit. So I expect these to take off now that we've gotten those out and fertilized. For side dressing, we just dig a little trench, spread some fertilizer, and fill it back in. The zipper tool from Neversink can work well for that if you don't have too much stubble. We often have too much stubble and just use a hoe, to do that. This was the rye that was from overwinter. Yep. So this is all grown in place rye. We did flail mow it. That's why it's partly chopped up like this. And then in order to get this interplanting, we put some leaf compost on top of it so that we could direct seed into that. So yeah, rye can be scary. It's like, oh no, how am I going to get my next crop in there? But you know, this was rye in a high tunnel that we got, a spring planted cucumber, interplanted, direct seeded, you know, shoulder crop as well. Oh, we got someone coming in here. Yeah.
Enormous thank you to Daniel and to Jackson, who filmed and edited this video. Real quick, before you go, don't forget to check out the show notes for some places you can find me this winter of 2023-2024, including the Acres Eco Ag Conference just across the river from Cincinnati, the 2024 Dallas Intercity Growers Symposium in Texas, the Utah Food and Farming Conference at the Red Acre Center, the Organic Association of Kentucky Conference here like 15 minutes from where I'm standing now, and the Organic Growers School outside of Asheville, North Carolina. Pick up a hat, or this book, or some merch to support our work. Or just go to patreon.com/no-till-growers and sign up. Or you can hit that super thanks button, that also works. It is because people do those things that we can make all of this content that we make, that hopefully you like. Otherwise, like this video if you like this video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you are subscribed, you're awesome. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Bye. Are you happy now? You're purring on my microphone.
Soil health or ecosystem health, we're in our minds, we're removing humans from that, and it's sort of this nature as this pristine idea. But I really strive to reintegrate us humans back into that soil food web. You know, I think of us as, you know, some people integrate livestock and run them through, like that's what we're doing. We're, you know, we're animals moving over the land. We are adding our energy to it, our diversity to it. So yeah, I'm glad that's a part of this discussion. For me, that's a huge part of why to farm this way. That's a huge benefit, not just to the farm and soil health and all that, but to the community and to the ripples it generates out into the human world as well.